Hey everybody, it is Thursday, March 12th, 2026. This is Gen X Speaks. Excuse my cold. So this morning, just very randomly on YouTube, I'm just watching, I'm flipping through and learned something that is extraordinarily distressing to me about nuclear weapons that I didn't know. So in 1962, the United States launched a nuclear test. Actually, it's made a few attempts at a nuclear test. In 1962 July, they succeeded in detonating a 1.4 megaton nuclear weapon, uh, 400 kilometers into space, 250 miles up. So about where the International Space Station rides today. The purpose for the testing was they believed that by doing this, the resulting radiation would be able to render a nuclear attack, like the missiles go into the atmosphere and come back down. It would mess up the guidance systems and render them inert. That was the idea. They were testing to see if this would actually, a theory to see if it would actually work. And much of the theory went off without a hitch, but there were unintended consequences. That radiation enveloped the entire planet and remained in space for years. In the process, and to make things worse, the Russians, of course, did their own testing, so it added to it, rendered satellites, inactive. Eventually they died. They wouldn't work. So the thing that is maybe more scary to me, I don't know if it's not more scary than total thermonuclear war, of course, but I can understand why the world doesn't want rogue nations to get nuclear weapons, because if you detonated one of those things in space, you need to think of all the thousands of satellites and various shit we have in space right now. They could all be rendered inert, which means communications as we know it would end. Using this device, forget it. One bomb could screw us up, placed at the right altitude. I can understand why we wouldn't want a nation like Iran to have nuclear weapons. I always understood it from the perspective of we don't want nuclear weapons, and another nation, particularly a religious nation, a theocratic nation, to have nuclear weapons because of that. But this is a nation. These are people. The Iranian religious government does not care if communications are destroyed across the world. They're living like it's the 5th century anyway. What do they care? Yeah, I now see. I mean, it doesn't really negate anything, because if someone else got a hold of a nuclear weapon, it was irresponsible, including us, who are clearly irresponsible. I'm not saying this is not, and believe me, this is not some kind of, we should have done this Iran war, because no, this is still the stupidest thing that the Trump administration has possibly ever done. But I now understand that any of us could do this and render the world that we know inert in days or months. Just another thing to worry about on a Thursday. You'll have a good day.